Come on up, sit, stand, whatever you like to do. Good morning. We're here this morning at UC Berkeley, one of the world's foremost educational institutions, to announce the appointment of Dr. Robert J. Bourgeonneau of the Proposition 71 Independent Citizens Oversight Committee. Dr. Bourgeonneau became the Chancellor of the University of California on September 22nd, 2004. An internationally distinguished physicist, he is a leader in higher education and is well known for his commitment to diversity and equity in the academic community. Before coming to Berkeley, he served 4 years as president of the University of Toronto. He previously was dean of the School of Science at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, where he spent 25 years on the faculty. He is an associate of the National Academy of Sciences, has received many awards for teaching and research, and is one of the most cited physicists in the world for his work on the fundamental properties of materials. He served on the faculty of Yale for 1 year, spent 1 year at Oxford University, and was a member of the technical staff at Bell Laboratories from 1968 to 1975. He joined the faculty at MIT in 1975 and was named chair of the physics department in 1988 and dean of science in 1991. He became the president of the University of Toronto on July 1st, 2000. At Berkeley, he holds a faculty appointment in the Department of Physics in addition to serving as chancellor. The California Stem Cell Research and Cures Act, approved by voters on November the 2nd, created an institute for degenerative medicine. The institute will manage $3 billion in research grants and loans for stem cell research over the next decade. A 29-member independent citizens oversight committee is the policy-making and management body for its operations. The law is very specific. I am directed to appoint an executive office of a California university, excluding the 5 campuses with teaching hospitals, as they already have been placed on the committee, that has demonstrated success and leadership in stem cell research. California is blessed with a number of research institutions. Berkeley is the best of the best. California is extremely fortunate to have Berkeley and Dr. Bourgeonneau as we embark on what could one day be seen as one of the most significant research efforts in medical history. Whether it's a family member, a neighbor, a coworker, we all know someone who has suffered from or is facing consequences of diseases as Alzheimer's, heart disease, diabetes, Parkinson's, paralyzing spinal injuries, and juvenile diabetes, to name just a few. Through this initiative, we are shaping a new generation of scientists and research. Being able to use stem cells, or unspecialized cells, that have the ability to generate healthy new cells, tissues, and organs, will give our world-class scientists the ability to provide cures and new treatments for this generation. In fact, 3 recent studies using stem cells produced encouraging results. One experiment involved employing human cells as biological pacemakers to correct faulty heart rhythms. In another study, scientists proved that stem cells could be utilized for the generation of eye cells. The third experiment found that stem cells produced healing compounds that can help ailing organs repair themselves. The future is now, and California is leading the way. This effort is long overdue, and I thank the voters for their confidence and their vision. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Robert Bourgeonneau.
Thank you, Cruz. I'm pleased and honored by this appointment and proud to take on these responsibilities. On stem cell research, the people of California have spoken. California leads the world in developing new technologies and bringing them to market for the betterment of life and the human condition. Now, more than 5 million voters have said that the state should lead in stem cell research. This we will do. My role on this committee is to advocate for the public. I will help ensure that the money is well and ethically spent for the people of California, the nation, and indeed the world. As you heard, I bring to this my background as a physicist, as well as my leadership experience as Dean of Science at MIT, President of the University of Toronto, and now Chancellor of Berkeley. I might mention as an aside, while I was in Toronto, I became good friends with Jim Tull and Ernie McCullough, who in the 50s were among those who originally discovered adult stem cells and their potential. And I can tell you, knowing them, that they will be and are elated with this initiative in California 50 years later, promising to bring such benefit to mankind from their pioneering work. So let me say a few words about both the great promise but also the great responsibilities of stem cell research. As you know, and as you heard from Cruz, medical science indicates cures for diseases such as cancer, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and AIDS may be accomplished with regenerative medical therapies, including embryonic stem cells. Such cells have the ability to transform into any type of tissue or cell. As you also know, the federal government limited federal support for embryonic stem cell research to colonies that were already harvested. The few lines that are available are unreliable and cannot be propagated in perpetuity. The California Act provides not only much more funding, but allows the development of new cell lines. This opens tremendous opportunity. California is a pioneer in entrepreneurship. If we look just at the UC system, more than 200 plus startups have emerged from technologies licensed from UC campuses and labs, and we're proud at Berkeley that we account for about 25% of those startups. Equally importantly, currently, virtually no students are being trained in stem cell research in the United States. With this initiative, California also becomes the major wellspring of new scientists and new talent in this area. In terms of responsibilities, we face the double ethical issues of the use of embryonic tissue, and the potential for human cloning. We need to keep in mind that right now, U.S. industry can do essentially whatever it wants in this area without any oversight at all, as long as no federal funds are involved. This California legislation provides the first oversight. We will be setting an example for the country in this way, and this is an important responsibility. For instance, our state constitution will now ban human cloning in this work. Where do we go from here? There's much work to be done. Our first task will be to select experts to bring a wide diversity of leadership in several areas, including with bioethics and science leading the list. In conclusion, probably each of us has friends or family who have suffered from the dreadful diseases we hope stem cell research will mitigate. Indeed, I went through the painful experience in last year myself of watching one of my close colleagues and friends in physics who was at the peak of his career suffer and die from ALS. In his memory, and indeed in the memory of all people who have suffered from diseases that stem cell research will mitigate, and for all who without this work would suffer in the future, we must move forward. It's now my pleasure to introduce Berkeley Professor of Cell and Developmental Biology, Randy Schekman. He's Berkeley's representative to the UC Committee on Stem Cell Policy and has been working with the statewide planning commission for this initiative. His research focuses on cell membranes and the building blocks and pathways by which cells assemble. He's one of our most distinguished faculty, and it's my pleasure to call on him.
Thank you very much, Chancellor. And thank you, Lieutenant Governor, for your leadership in this very important task that we have before us. I'd like to especially thank the people of California for their courage and wisdom in supporting this terribly important work. In the early 1970s, the University of California, and California in general, was the birthplace of the modern biotechnology industry. This gave rise to a multi-billion-dollar effort that grew and extended throughout the rest of the United States. So once again, we are facing a revolutionary new technology, and California is leading the way. Now, in the case of the recombinant DNA revolution of the early 1970s, it became possible to make and treat diseases with medicines made of protein molecules that could be engineered in recombinant cells. Now, such molecules, for example, insulin, are used, human recombinant insulin is used to treat patients with diabetes. However, these patients must be treated by injections over the course of their lifetime, some tens of thousands of injections, and for a treatment that is really just palliative, but rather than a cure. We now have the prospect of not merely palliative treatments, but by tissue replacement, cures for such diseases as diabetes. And I would like to tell you a little bit about stem cell technology and what that offers by way of such cures. Now, as we've heard already, we all have family and friends who suffer from diseases that may be treated by this regenerative medicine. In my case, I'm touched very personally. My wife has Parkinson's disease, which is a disease that affects only a few thousand cells in the brain, cells that respond by making a chemical that allows nerve cells to communicate with each other. It's a neurotransmitter chemical called dopamine. And during the course of the progression of this disease, these cells die, and they cannot be easily replaced. The disease is treated by the use of a chemical analog of dopamine, which is palliative. It is certainly not a cure. I also teach a course here at Berkeley on insulin as a molecule of biological investigation. And in my class, a freshman seminar class, there are two young women who have juvenile diabetes. They will be faced, as I said a few minutes ago, with the prospect of taking insulin over the course of their lifetime, thousands of injections, eventually very debilitating treatment. Once again, in this disease, diabetes, patients lose just a few thousand cells, cells that we now think can be produced by this technology. So what is this technology that we're talking about? It is the ability to harness embryonic cells that have the capacity to grow and form any of the 200 tissues in our body. What we need to do is to learn how to guide these cells, to coax them along their path to making, for instance, a dopamine-secreting nerve cell or an insulin-secreting pancreatic cell. We believe that this technology is ripe for development, and we believe that the university and industry of California will benefit dramatically by the development of this technology. As with the recombinant DNA revolution of the early 1970s, any new development in the life sciences comes with risks to society. In the case of recombinant DNA, this risk was managed by intervention by scientists and by the federal government, who established guidelines and advisory boards to judge the quality of work and whether safeguards were developed to make sure that the work didn't get out of hand. Prop 71 offers an opportunity for that kind of public oversight. The committee that we've heard about this morning will have participation of bioethicists, scientists, community activists, people who have an active role in guiding not only the technology, but also public oversight. So I'm confident that this proposition and its implementation will adhere to the strictest ethical guidelines. Now, here at Cal, we're positioned, I believe, to very effectively approach this question, the question of how cells can be coaxed along one or another of several paths. At Cal, we have prominent scientists who are involved, and we're involved in some of the most important discoveries in how cells grow and develop into the organs of our body. These very decisions that the processes that were discovered here at Cal and which were deciphered with molecules will be involved in the pathway of development that allows stem cells to turn into pancreatic cells or into dopamine secreting cells or nerve cells that may be used to treat spinal cord injury, any of the promises that we've heard. Well, we've been provided then with an unprecedented opportunity. We're eager to cooperate with other UC campuses, with private industry, with other research institutes and universities around the state. And we're also eager to begin to recruit new faculty, either within California or from outside of California, who see this as with the same enthusiasm that those of us here now see. So we're eager to begin. Thank you.
We also have with us Ken Kleinschmidt, who is with Proposition 71. Ken, why don't you come on up? Would you like to make any comments while you're here? No? Okay, well, he's here to answer any questions. So we'll take questions at this time. Yes.
I'd like to start with the two doctors, Dr. Virgino and Dr.
Checkman.
Thank you. Dr. Virgino, you started identifying this team, but where we have to start first. We have to assemble the proper team. So what project do you begin with? Because you identified a lot of potential projects. What project do you begin with to set us on course?
So I'm a physicist, not a medical doctor or a molecular biologist. And that's good, actually, in many ways, because it means I'll be totally objective in my participation in this. We must first put together a team of experts. That team of experts will solicit proposals, and they will make that decision of what's the most promising in terms of stem cell research.
Are you asking about the makeup of the committee?
No.
No.
The particular project.
Okay.
Yeah. So that will be done, via a rigorous review process, which will ensure that the best research is done and that research. Right. Yeah.
Proposition 71 requires that at least one of the committees that will be appointed by this oversight committee consists of scientists who have no vested interest in the expenditure of the funds. So this science panel of outside experts will likely largely come from out of California. And they will not be permitted to enjoy any of the funds, but they, being interested scientists, will want to help us identify the most promising research to fund.
The committee's called the Independent Oversight Committee, and you spoke about representing the public interest. Of course, the critics of this initiative have been saying all along, they're still saying that there's really nothing independent about that oversight committee, and in fact, UC Berkeley, as you pointed out, has a big interest in this research and probably will be recruiting and actively involved and so forth. So how can people, with all due respect to you, sir, trust that you are going to be looking out for the public interest rather than the institutional interest?
Right. First of all, they have my word. That's the most important thing. Secondly, I'll be one of 29 people, and so there's a broad array. And it's important, in my experience, in any such oversight groups, it's important to have among the group people who have practical experience in overseeing complicated research programs.
Yeah, Mr. Hall, I think you may know, in looking at the composition of the proposed committees, that a variety of public groups are invited to name candidates to serve on the ICOC or on the member panels, including patient advocate groups and and people, of course, from industry and from the university, but also bioethicists will be part of the panel. So there is a very broad representation built in to the mandate in this. I believe very widely representative of all the interests in California, public included.
There clearly is a challenge because, as you so rightly pointed out, the vast number of people who are going to be on this committee have a stake in how everything is going to evolve. And so there is language in Prop 71 as well as in language of state a law that talks about conflicts of interest and how to recuse yourself in those kinds of very specific conflicts. So I think that probably the vast majority of the committee members will be doing some training on this whole area in order to make sure that I don't think that any one of them, and I talked to Dr. Murphy from Salk Institute, who we appointed last week. That was his major concern. His concern was how do we participate and how do we provide expertise and management at the same time. We're very engaged in the process already. So it's going to be a challenge, but it will be something in which you have we're trying to assemble a committee of the very best that California has to offer in order to be able to set this on the right course, and then it'll be clearly an issue of transparency. The press, I'm sure, will be very engaged, and the idea of recusing oneself when they have a very specific conflict will have to be maintained at a very high level. Would you like to add anything? No?
How will the committee work to balance competing interests, not necessarily self-serving interests, but competing values, either scientific, economic, political values?
I'm probably the last person who should comment on this, being the most lay of all the persons. But again, it's going to be a challenge. We are attempting to put together, based on the initiative and what's written in the initiative, a team of people in order to be able to move folks ahead. The committee members include people who are CEOs of major industry companies. There are academics. There are advocates on behalf of either ALS or MS. There are advocates on behalf of type 2 diabetes. So it's not all going to be CEOs of major companies. There's going to be an array of public and private folks who are hopefully creating a balance within the committee. Those folks who are advocates are clearly going to be looking to try to find the very best results that science can offer to the people they represent, and hopefully it will create a balance, and that the conflict of interest issues will be something that will be allayed once the committee begins to actually operate and begins to demonstrate its management techniques. We're hopeful. In addition, there will be a variety of different committees that will be establish a substrata of technical people, not generic or administrative or management types, but very specific strata of technicians that have been extremely engaged in the science. As you may know, most of the researchers and most of the research that comes out of the University of California is not something in which it's sold or is given any kind of what's the when you get royalties or royalties. It's given away. It's given away so that it's broadly available to anybody who can make use of that kind of research. And so when you see the technicians and the researchers and the UC's involvement, when you see the advocates, I think you'll see that there is, in fact, not only just an implied balance, but an actual balance of all those who are participating in this process.
Your point was well taken about the language of Proposition 71 banning any human cloning.
That's correct.
Is not the genie out of the bottle when you're building out these grants and awarding the grants to these different companies?
The language is very specific. It is not to engage, encourage. It's not to participate in any way, shape, or form with any kind of human cloning. It's very clear.
If I can add, many of us in the scientific community feel very strongly that the federal government should take a lead role in banning human cloning. But this, as you know, has become tied up with the issue of embryonic stem cell research. But I think there are enough Democrats and even a few Republicans in the federal government who feel very strongly that one should just simply take a firm stand in opposition to human cloning. And if that were done, I think that might ease some people's minds on this issue.
If I could just add one thing. It's a little bit different than the question you're asking, but I think it's a very important point to be made, and why this particular project is so important, not just to California, but to the world. Those lines that have been allowed by the federal government are all contaminated lines. If you ask any of the researchers, you will find that they've all been contaminated with mouse cells. As a result, they're not usable except for a very, very limited type of research. And this will allow, as was mentioned earlier, the ability to create new lines that, in fact, could be used for research that could help review the data with humans in mind rather than mice and rats and other kinds of species. So it's very important. Not only will it be important economically to California that we're able to do that, but it's important to the research itself so that we can, in fact, compare that data as it affects humans. It's a very important part of what this program is. Without that ability, we would be continuing to use these contaminated lines that would be very, very limited in terms of the kind of research that could be done.
UCSF has set up a separate facility with separate staff and buildings, so forth, equipment to make sure there's no commingling. I wonder if Berkeley's going to do something like that, or how are you going to deal with NIH stuff that's going on and now this California stuff?
So we have not worked out the infrastructure details, but we will ensure that that there's no commingling.
I called the UC last Thursday, so they probably haven't worked out all the specifics yet.
Just to follow up, it might help people trying to figure this thing out. I realize that you haven't even got the committee going yet or the working groups and so forth, but you probably have some idea of what's going to happen in the next, say, 6 months at least. There's supposed to be some financing decisions made initially in real estate and so forth. Could you sort of give us a sense of maybe, let's say, the first year, or at least the first few months, once the committee's established, what is going to happen in a concrete sort of way?
No.
I could say something.
I don't think we should say too much because we don't know.
I mean, you have a brand new committee. They haven't met yet. We don't know what they're going to do. I think that it's clear that what the first thing you have to do is that they have to organize themselves. They have to organize the process that they're going to use to carry out. We're talking about a decade-long effort that's going to spend around $3 billion. So chances are the very first year is going to be organizing themselves in order to be able to meet those challenges. Do you want to? Anybody? No?
Well, there are very specific requirements. There are very specific requirements that are stipulated in the proposition. The funding is to begin 150 days after it's passed. Committees have to be established, and a granting mechanism must be established. As part of the UC's effort, we've already been discussing convening a meeting at the National Academy of Sciences Irvine facility, bringing grants agencies down to Southern California for a discussion in early December to consider implementing a new funding mechanism that will have to be ramped up very quickly. So there are very specific goals that are written into the language that will be implemented over the next few months. So there's going to be a meeting there's a National Academy of Sciences facility at UC Irvine to discuss granting mechanisms and how we may craft such a mechanism for this program. So experts who are used to establishing granting programs will be asked to make presentations, and some committee will be convened to consider how exactly to do that for this program.
believe the committees are required to be established within the first 30 days, 45 days?
By December 17th.
By December the 17th, according to our expert on Prop 71. Yes, sir.
Governor, no, but 40 billion doesn't go as far as it used to. What happens when the money runs out? What's the fuel that's in the back?
Well, there's some of us who are pretty optimistic that as we have seen the multitude of startups that have come as a result of the kind of research and that has taken place in the UC system and this concentration of creativity that's been in the Bay Area. There's a concentration here. There's a concentration down south. There's several concentrations of folks who are already in the process of creating activity in this field. About 40% of the world's venture capital is spent right here in California with respect to biotechnology. So the activities in and around that, I think, will probably generate a variety of activities. I think that the $3 billion will end up being a leverage. The current administration won't be there for the full 10 years, and as a result, we may have an opportunity to get some enlightened leadership and be able to provide some additional resources to this endeavor. I would expect that although there may not be immediate cures and treatments that would come, this is the beginning of a massive research activity that will probably serve this generation rather than waiting the next generation. And what I mean by that is that if it's going to be serving this generation that we're in, the chances are that the treatments and the cures and all of that is extended from that will probably provide a tremendous amount of opportunity for funding for this activity. Nobody wants to say a number. Nobody wants to talk about the chances of what amount of money could come and flow into this. There is clearly in the proposition activity that is talked about with respect to royalties and a variety of other things. But I think that that's going to be up to the management, a very clear, strong management of this institution. The UC, for example, is used to being able to go out and get private sector funds for its research. It's able to get federal funding for lots of its research. And I think that you're going to see that with the kind of board that's going to be on here, not just are going to be talented in the area of this industry, but I think very, very adept at being able to find the kind of resources necessary, because success will beget success. As soon as it starts showing some success, it will have other success. And all you have to do is look across the country right now, and every single microclimate of stem cell researchers are now looking to come to California. Whether they want to be an adjunct professor, or whether they want to open up a new office in California, or they want to relocate. Everybody is coming to California on this issue. It is a massive, it is the next, it's this century's gold rush. I think that will mean a tremendous amount of funding, and it will provide for the very best research. And I think that most of us are pretty optimistic that it will be extremely successful.
Once this gold rush starts,
It's already started.
who owns the licenses, the patents, where does the money come to?
Well, that is going to be, there's a lot of theories about how you deal with the issue of patents and how you deal with the issue of royalties. As I mentioned earlier, the UC doesn't maintain that because it provides that research globally once it's been done. It doesn't maintain those kinds of revenues that come as a result of the research. It keeps research pure. And as a result, individuals may participate. There may be activities that take place off campus in other kinds of structures, but it's not to the university itself. In this particular case, it does provide for some activity, some royalty, but it's not really defined how yet. And that management committee, from my understanding, is what will determine how they're going to go about doing that.
Thank you, Governor.
Thank you all.